This is George G. Welcome to George G's Room of Rock. How's everyone doing out there today? Hope everyone's doing well. It's a gloomy week and weekend here in the Northeast, here in New Jersey. So hopefully where you are, it's a nice day. It's pretty crappy here. Anyway, I'm gonna do maybe something that's not unusual for me, but unusual for like the channel because what I talk about. I'm gonna do a ranking of one of my favorite bands, the Beatles. And I know the Beatles aren't a heavy metal band or hard rock band or anything, but and some people only think they're a rock and roll band, but they are a rock and roll band. I mean, they people just don't think of it as a pop band of the '60s, but their influences were all the original rock and rollers of like Elvis and Chuck Berry and Little Richard and all those Buddy Holly, all those great. That's what rock and roll was. That's I mean, people don't think of it that way anymore because it's old music, but back in the day, all those old bands, like all those old artists, like I just mentioned, Elvis and Little Richard and Chuck Berry, parents were scared of that stuff. I mean, they were not super scared, but they were concerned with their kids were getting into where that stuff was kind of like taboo for the time, I guess. And the Beatles just kind of that's what they were into, and that's what they listened to. And if all you know of the Beatles is their the way they looked with the suits and everything, before they did all that stuff, they were in leather jackets, leather pants. That's what their whole thing was. And they just played hard rock and roll. Their stuff's a little bit harder for the stuff they did in the early days before they got signed. They got big. But later on, they got a little, more psychedelic, and they did more like rock and roll. But the Beatles are a rock band. And this is, I call this channel Room of Rock, not Room of Metal, because I talk about other besides metal. But most of it's hard rock and metal. But this is a rock band. I love the Beatles, and they've influenced so many artists over the years. They influenced guys in Black Sabbath, especially Ozzy, guys in Kiss and Mountain, all these other bands that older bands that we like from the '70s. The Beatles influenced them, and even so much other genres too. They haven't just influenced them, but without the Beatles, you don't have what you got today. In my opinion, you really don't. They really changed the landscape. Whether you like their music or not, they changed the landscape of music forever. And it owes to them and all the artists before the originators of rock and roll. So. They're one of my top five favorite bands of the Beatles. So I'm doing my ranking here, and there's 12 albums we're gonna go through. I'm not gonna include a couple later. I'm not gonna include Yellow Submarine here because it's just a compilation from the movie that they did, but it's got some newer tracks on it at the time. Hey Bulldog, Only Northern Song. What do you call it? It's All Too Much and All Together Now. So, but I'm not going to rank it here because it's not really a full album. I'm also going to do this, but I'm not going to rank. I may just talk about it a little bit, but two Past Masters albums, Masters 1 and 2. This is all the older material from like I Want to Hold Your Hand, She Loves You, I'm Down. That's got this one on it, but it's not a full album. It's just was released back in, I think, in the 80s. And then this has got all the later stuff. Day Tripper, We Can Work It Out, Paperback Writer, Hey Jude, Revolution, which is like, they have different versions of Revolution. This one's a heavier version. If you want to think of heavy Beatles, that's a pretty heavy song for the Beatles, but I'm not talking about that. And the great songs on this one, but I'm talking about the regular album. So there are 12 albums to go through, and I love all their albums. So even if there's a bottom one, this doesn't matter. It's good. They're all great to me, So hopefully someone likes this. Even if you don't like the Beatles, if you just like, whatever. Listen to me. You might like some of the stuff I'm talking about. So you never know. Anyway, let's go with my number 12, which is from 1963, and it's their second album. Because these are all I think most of these are from the UK, because they had different releases for the UK and the US. But this is the second one from the UK with the Beatles. And in the United States, it's called Meet the Beatles. I think they had mixed tracks from this one and their first album. This is their second album, and this one has It Won't Be Long, All I Gotta Do, All My Lovin', which is a pretty famous song by them. They do a lot of covers, Please Mr. Postman, Roll Over Beethoven, Money, but Not a Second Time is one of their old songs. It's really got good stuff on this one. This one's really, really one of my favorites I really got. Till There Was You was another cover. We really like Paul McCartney sings that one. And of course, if you guys, who doesn't know, you should know who the Beatles, John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr. You know that, but I'm doing it anyway because I should say that anyway. All right, that's my number 12 is their second album. This one is their 1967. This is from their third film. This, I think, is the American version because this is an EP in the UK, I believe, but it's Magical Mystery Tour. And this is like part of the soundtrack from the movie, the third movie they put out, which really isn't a very good movie. It's got its moments, but nothing great. But it's got Magical Mystery Tour. I love the title track to the song. The Fool on the Hill. And they got Flying and Blue Jay Way with, I believe that's both George Harrison songs. Your Mother Should Know, great song. I Am the Walrus, another pretty famous one by John Lennon. This one has like extra tracks on it. They put on this one. I don't think it's on the EP one. Like I said, it's different versions. This one has Hello, Goodbye, Strawberry Fields, Forever, which everyone knows. Penny Lane, Baby, a Rich Man, All You Need Is Love, which is a song they did pretty much live, I think, on the pay-per-view, on Satellite, which is one of the first Satellite things they did. But it's still a good album. I mean, I like it for what it is. It's more than psychedelic stuff. But that's my number 11. My number 10 is the debut, Please Please Me, which is also 1963. And something about something I always liked about it. I mean, it's their Beatles in their infancy, but it's got I Saw Her Standing There, another famous song by them. It's got Please Please Me, the title track is very good. Love Me Do, which is the first single I think they released. And do you want to know a secret? Which is one song that really people don't think two people like. I always like that. It's a song by George Harrison, but it's written by McCartney and John Lennon. Twist and Shout, another famous song that they covered, but it's one of theirs. Also, this is the only album where the song is listed with John Lennon and Paul McCartney. Usually it's kind of Lennon McCartney. This is the only one that's listed as McCartney Lennon. They changed it later out of because John said it sounded better, so I thought that's pretty funny. But yeah, so that's my number 10. My number 9 is mine's on a double kind of thing, and that's the White Album. So, that's from 1960. Of course, now I can't see the title. 60. Wait, hold on. Let's get right there. Oh boy, 68. This is later Beatles when they got more rock and roll with their stuff. This is the double album because they had gone on their little hiatus in or vacation. What do you want to call it? Mentoring thing and whatever you want to call it in India, and they all wrote a bunch of songs. So this is the double disc for that, and they had a lot of songs. People might say there's a lot of filler in it. There's, I don't know about that. Maybe some of it is, but it's got Back in the USSR in this one. Dear Prudence, Glass Onion, Obladi, Oblada, great songs. While My Guitar Gently Weeps is a fantastic song by George Harrison, one of the best ones. I'm So Tired, one of my favorite ones. Blackbird. Don't Pass Me By, which is by Ringo Starr sings that one. Why Don't We Do It in the Road? Great song. That's on, also on the second album or disc, what do you call it? Birthday, which, you see some of these songs are always like in movies and stuff. Everybody Got Something to Hide for Me and My Monkey. Great song. Helter Skelter. Now, in my opinion, Helter Skelter is one of the first heavy metal songs because it really is pretty heavy for the Beatles. You might think that's freaking nuts, but listen to it. I think even Motley Crue covered it, probably other bands covered it, but it's a pretty heavy song for the Beatles, in my opinion. And it's got Revolution 1 on this, which is a different version of the one that was on Past Masters here. But it's got Revolution 9, which is like really just wacky stuff that he would do with Yoko Ono. Their band didn't really want on the album, but he put it on it anyway. And a nice little ending with Good Night, which is sung by Ringo Starr also, which is like talking to his, almost like you're singing to your kid as he goes to bed. Really, really sweet little song. So anyway, that's my number, oh my God, I lost track already. Okay, what I lose track? 1, 2, 3. That's number 4. Number, it doesn't matter. This is my number 8 here. Yeah, number 8 here is from 1964, and that's Beatles for Sale. I always loved that cover. I don't know why, I always like the album cover for this one. This one's like a little bit more serious, I guess, because the album before was A Hard Day's Night, and this was a little more serious. But it's got No Reply, I'm a Loser, Babies in Black, Mr. Moonlight, 8 Days a Week, another pretty famous song by them. They do a nice version of Rock and Roll Music from Chuck Berry. And it's one of my favorites. I really like a lot. This one. Every Little Thing, another song. One of my favorite songs is Every Little Thing. Another great song, great album. So that's my number 8. I think I said. My number 7 is their second soundtrack, basically movie, is Help, and that's from 1965. Another great one. It's got the title track Help, of course. You got Hide Your Love Away. You're Gonna Lose That Girl. Ticket to Ride. Act Naturally, which Ringo sings, great song. Yesterday, it's just basically Paul McCartney himself and just the acoustic guitar with some strings added to it. But it's like one of the songs they said that who he was sure they were gonna if you should do it or not because he didn't want to upset the other guys. This is what I saw the documentaries, but it's a great song, great album. That's my number 7. All right, now number 6 is their first movie kind of soundtrack, and that's A Hard Day's Night. I always like this one. Of course, Hard Day's Night, the title track, and I Should Have Known Better. Can't Buy Me Love, which was actually used in the movie in the 80s. The title track, the title of the song was used for that, and the title of the movie. Things We Said Today. You Can't Do That. I'll Be Back. Great album. This, a fun album. This is what they were, as like I said, the one after this was Beatles for Sale, which was more serious. This was more upbeat, more fun. So that's what the Beatles were all about. So that's my number 6. My number 5 is from 1965. Also, they put a lot of albums out. For such a short career, like think of 7 years, they put a lot of stuff out. And that's Rubber Soul. This has got Drive My Car, Norwegian Wood, Nowhere Man. I mean, The Word, I'm Looking Through You, In My Life, Run For Your Life. It's got some great songs on this. It's a little calmer maybe for some of it, but it's really excellent album. Another great cover. Another great album. That's my number 5. My number 4 is from 1966, and this is the first album after I think they stopped touring. They had enough of touring. There was at that time they were done. They were going to do stuff in the studio. They had enough. There was the whole Beatles thing made them. It was crazy because it was like they were such a big thing at the time that touring was making they had no life except for doing shows and sitting in a hotel. That's no life they had. So they just had enough and they did this and that's what they did. So anyway, Revolver from 1966. I'm sorry. This is Taxman, also sung by George Harrison. Eleanor Rigby, another famous one. Yellow Submarine. This is where the Yellow Submarine song came on. She said. Good Day Sunshine, another great song. And Tomorrow Never Knows, which is like the first kind of like psychedelic kind of trippy song they did. And Revolver, freaking excellent stuff. My number 3, and this could be number 1 for anyone who's into the Beatles, but it's from 1967. That's Sgt. Pepper, Lonely Heart Club Band. This is my first Beatles album I ever bought. So, my friend Sean actually got me into the Beatles a lot because he was really, really into them. He knows a lot of stuff about this. So, Sean, if you're watching, I'm doing this for you. But if I do a top 25 songs, I'll definitely get you involved in it. But I wanted to kind of do this one here. So, anyway, Sgt. Pepper's, the title track, with a little help from my friends, sung by Ringo. Another great song, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. She's Leaving Home is nice, really good, nice song. There, Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite, another song by John Lennon. When I'm 64, which is pretty funny because they built this thing and they wrote this in their 20s, and they're like Paul McCartney wrote that one. He's like way past his 60s now, still performing, still doing it. So it's amazing how him and Ringo Starr are still doing it, and they're in their 80s. It's amazing, still touring. It's just crazy. And it's got, of course, Good Morning, and A Day in the Life, another famous song by John Lennon with some Paul McCartney input on it. And from what I saw is, from people know, but from the documentaries, is like when they did this album, they said, let's just make an album and make it a concept. And it's really not a concept, really, because most of it's just supposed to go on another album. It really wasn't a concept except for the first couple songs and the end of it. But they said, let's put the album on tour. And that was the whole thing. We didn't want to tour no more. Put the album on tour. That was the whole idea of this. So that's pretty cool. And one story I saw on one of when they did the anthology series back in the 90s, the story Paul McCartney said was this album just came out on a Friday, and Jimi Hendrix learned like Sgt. Pepper, and played it as opening on the Sunday. So he learned it. He came out, he learned it. So Jimi Hendrix did like a cover of Sgt. Pepper when 2 days after it came out. So that's pretty crazy. So anyway, it's it's probably one of the most famous ones, but it's great cover art too. So that's my number 3. My number 2, are there more like later rocking, rock albums. So, and this is their last release from 1970, and it's Let It Be. Not produced by George. All the albums are produced by George Martin, by the way. Except for this one's like by Phil Spector, but I think George Martin had, he did the original stuff. Because this is from the Let It Be or Get Back sessions kind of thing, and there was a whole debacle with that whole thing. If you, watched the documentary that I had on, I guess it was on Disney. It was really good. 3 days of it. It was amazing what they went through the whole thing of this whole album. But this is the songs they picked at the time, just to make it. And this is the end of the band already. They were done already. This is the last thing they released, but not the last thing they recorded. This is recorded before the last album, but this is what they released last. So, of course, this has got Two of Us, Dig a Pony. One of my wife's favorite songs is Dig a Pony. Across the Universe, I Be Mine, great George Harrison song. Let It Be, of course, pretty famous there. I've Got a Feeling. One After 909, one of my favorite songs. It's pretty fun. One After 909. For You Blue, another great George Harrison song, and Get Back, the last song, which is really, really, I don't know what about it, but the way they mixed it in is, I guess some of the rooftop concerts, just some of it is, and some of it isn't. But at the end, John Lennon says, we'd like to thank you by behalf of the group and hope we pass the audition. I thought that was just a great line to end the Beatles' career on. I don't know why, I just thought that was really cool. And my favorite one always is from 1969. That's Abbey Road. It's just a classic. It's a really fantastic album. Just to be there. That was their last album recorded, and I think that's why they actually were like a band doing it together, because they really were kind of like just doing what they could do before that. But this was really, it's got Come Together. Aerosmith covered that. Something, a fantastic song by George Harrison. Maxwell's Silver Hammer, which that song is like, if you listen to the lyrics of that, it's really disturbing, kind of. For that time, for the Beatles, it's a little bit disturbing, but it's still great. Octopus's Garden by Ringo Starr, great song. I Want You, She's So Heavy. The band Coroner actually, the thrash metal band Coroner actually covered that, which is pretty funny. Here Comes the Sun, one of my favorite songs by George Harrison too. And then they have the connected side with Sun King, Mr. Mustard, Polythene, and Pam. She came through the bathroom window. Golden Slumbers, Carry That Weight at the end. And that side there was for Paul McCartney, and the other side was to please like John Lennon. I heard this is all stuff I read. It's not this stuff I've heard about. Just don't quote me on it. But another great famous cover too. And yeah, that's my ranking. That's my number one. Is that Abbey Road. So I mean, I said I love the Beatles. Just great stuff. But I do have a couple of things I'm gonna show you. It isn't like from the ranking, but these are pretty cool. This is there's 2 volumes of this. This is live at the BBC. I only have the volume of this one. This has got a bunch of different takes on the songs that they did from the early days. Really good stuff. And then of course, you have the 3 anthology albums here, and this one too. And like I said, that's part of the ranking. But on the first anthology, they do "Free as a Bird," which is a John Lennon song, and they just after he was gone, because of course he died in 1980, and this is years before even George Harrison passed away. Is they did this "Free as a Bird" was a John Lennon song, and they just put his vocal, the original tape he had, and then the rest of the Beatles just put their own music on it and sang on it and did whatever. And I thought it was really done really nice. And they also did the same thing with this one for "Real Love," another John Lennon song. They put a song on it. I really love that one too. So anyway, that's my little spiel on the Beatles there. So that's it. So I really enjoy listening to them. Like I said, when I'm not listening to all the heavy metal and all the death metal and the thrash metal and the glam metal stuff, I listen to stuff like the Beatles. So that's my thing. Anyway, that's it, guys. I hope you liked the video. I hope someone enjoyed it. But and as always, if you please leave a comment whatever you think of the band, if you think I'm nuts, whatever. But anyway, if you'd like to see, please like and subscribe, guys, and keep rocking metal alive. We'll see you next time.